Let me switch on the record. Perfect. Now I will share my screen and we will quickly get into what I want to share with you. It's a very brief introduction. And if I were to say there is one key slide is to arouse your interest, to get your inclination to see and read more. And that's what I call as the context and the essence of Gita. So we will spend more time on that slide, and the rest are all we just go through to get into the flow. Let me start. You can see the slide, sir?
No, not as yet, not really.
Not yet? Share screen.
I don't have to do anything from my side. You need to put it as a project.
Now you should see.
Yes, now it's coming.
Perfect.
Yes, it's come.
Okay. Just to give you the overview, this song of God, because it was Krishna who personally spoke about Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, it has around 700 verses. And this happened around 5,000 years ago in the battlefield at Kurukshetra. And if you were to see the analysis of Bhagavad Gita, around 575 verses Krishna has spoken. Arjuna has spoken around 83. And mostly in chapters 1 and 11. And in other chapters, he has just spoken 28 verses. Sanjaya, who is the, let's say, executive assistant, personal secretary of Dhritarashtra, he has spoken 41 verses. And generally, you find him speaking in chapter 1, 2, 11, and 18. And Bhagavad Gita starts with the verse from Dhritarashtra. So he has spoken just once. So this is the overview of how Bhagavad Gita looks like and who has spoken how much. And this is something which I have picked up from the scriptures, which says, Veda Shastre Kahe Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana Krishna Krishna Bhakti Prema Tina Mahadana. The sum and substance of this is that Krishna is the central point of attraction in all Vedic literatures. His service is our activity. And you will see this word activity quite frequently as we go ahead. It's also known as karma. To attain the platform of love of Krishna is the life's ultimate goal. Now, we may arrive at this conclusion by reading all the 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Atharvana Veda, but and that's a lengthy process. It would take a lifetime for us to go through all the 4 Vedas. The best thing to do is to go through Vedanta Sutra, that is the summary of all Vedas in Bhagavad Gita. So in 700 verses, you get the sum and substance of the entire Vedic literature that is there in this world. Any questions so far, sir?
No, thank you. Very clear, very good.
Right. And we must get into this background because Bhagavad Gita has to be seen and understood that it is not something which happened only in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhagavad Gita existed before, and Bhagavad Gita was brought into this material world 5,000 years ago when Krishna spoke to Arjuna. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also gives us the history of Bhagavad Gita. He says this is existence since time immemorial. And Krishna says that I have first spoken to this sun god, Surya, who is also known as Vivaswan, his son Manu, his son Ikshvaku, and if you see, each of them is a disciple of the other. So Bhagavad Gita generally has to be heard from someone who follows the disciplic succession. And when he realized that after Ikshvaku, for various reasons, the chain of disciplic succession was broken, Krishna took birth in this world and said that Arjuna is my devotee. He's an intimate friend of mine. Let me reveal the secret of life to him through Bhagavad Gita. So the lesson here is, the moral here is, we need to be having respect for Krishna. We need to be devoted to him. And there are various ways of being devoted to him. There's not one way. In fact, he himself defines three kinds of transcendentalists who can approach Krishna. You can be a gnani, where you say that, I only go by what is written in the scriptures. Yogi, who is an Ashtanga yogi, who follows the 8-path fold of yoga, and through that process achieves the realization of Krishna. That's also welcome. And he also says, I will give you the easiest process to reach me. You don't have to read a lot. You don't have to, perform, go through the rigorous process of doing yoga. You can come to me by being a devotee of me. Establish a relationship with me. So this is one of the most important confidential knowledge that comes to all of us, the entire mankind, is that you can achieve Krishna through devotion. Moving further. Now, I have classified this slide as strength of Gita, because I wanted to bring alive the fact that Bhagavad Gita is not a book where you are looked at by the religion you belong to, the religion that you practice, the caste you come from. You could be from anywhere, any place, doing anything. Krishna very clearly says, whatever you are, however you are, wherever you are dear to me. And there is a sloka which says, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Asu Vairagyam Gnanam Chayad Ahetukam. By rendering devotional service unto personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Why I brought this sloka here is, we are reading Bhagavad Gita, we are trying to understand the message of Lord, not just because of knowledge. What does knowledge lead to? Knowledge leads to wisdom. What is wisdom? Is don't be attached to this world. As you go ahead, you will start understanding, wow, what is the profound depth of knowledge that Krishna is trying to share. And this doesn't come easy. Just to share an example with you, my wife, her great-grandfather, his name was Sali Ramchandra Rao. He was in Dharwad and he was a very famous poet. And in his autobiography, he has said, I have read Bhagavad Gita 2,838 times. So that is the depth of knowledge that exists in Bhagavad Gita. Every time you read it, you will understand some new facet, dimension of what Krishna is trying to tell us. Let me also tell a small story, which tries to bring alive as to how we should approach Bhagavad Gita. There's no one which way, and you can do what you can. And the story is like this. There was a small family which lived on a small hillock. Grandfather, a child, his parents. Happy family. And the grandson used to observe his grandfather every day gets up early in the morning and gets busy reading Bhagavad Gita. So the grandson, being in an impressionable age, thought that, well, if grandpa is reading this, let me also try. And he sincerely made an effort. After many days, after many attempts, he comes and tells his grandpa, Grandpa, I am really disappointed. I am not able to make head or tail of Bhagavad Gita. But I see you enjoying it every day without fail. How is this possible? How is that you are able to understand Bhagavad Gita? Then the grandpa says, do one thing, you are very young, but let me demonstrate to you what is the message that I want to give you. So he says, Young lad, come here. Take this coal basket. Go to the well and get me water. I need water now. The child looks at grandpa, looks at the basket and says, are you sure? How can I bring water in this basket? Give me a bucket, I'll get you water. Grandpa says, no, I'm very clear. I want you to bring water in this coal basket. The kid says, okay, fine. You are wanting me to bring it. Let me try. He's not convinced, but he runs to the well, comes back, and there's no water left because it's an open basket. He does it a couple of times, gets disappointed, disillusioned, and he comes back and says, Grandpa, you are making a fool of me. I don't think I will be able to bring any water for you from the well. Give me a bucket, I'll get you as much water as you want. Then Grandpa says, pause here. Just look at what has happened to the coal basket in your hand. And the kid looks at the basket and he finds that it is as good as new, because all the dust and dirt of coal which was there in the basket has gone. And he made an attempt to bring water. He did not succeed, but he still achieved something, and that was cleaning of the coal basket. This is the essence of hearing and learning Bhagavad Gita. We may not remember, we may not have a deeper understanding, but the effort should be, let us try and understand. Let us try and read if we can. So Krishna is more important, more happy to see the endeavor than your perfection or your expertise. He says, there are many people who are experts in Bhagavad Gita in this world. But my purpose of speaking Bhagavad Gita was not only for these experts. It is meant to be an encyclopedia. It is meant to be a guide for all of us, for all people in this world. And that's the reason where he stresses, I am not interested in looking at what's your caste, creed, religion, what's your social status. You are a wealthy person, you're a poor person, you're a hungry person. It doesn't matter to me. You are dear to me. So this is the strength of Gita. Further, unlike many philosophical texts, scriptures, Gita is fluid. It is dynamic. It never imposes anything. He says, as a living being, I have given you free will. I have given you choice. You decide. There is no compulsion and there is no imposition. You are free to follow any yoga. And there are 3 types of yoga defined in Bhagavad Gita. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, gnana yoga. In fact, karma yoga is very famous because of karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. If we get an opportunity, we'll talk about it sometime later. Bhakti yoga, we talked about it through devotion. Bhakti yoga is easy. When I say easy, we should not mistake it that, oh, I can close my eyes, sit in a room, and I can achieve Krishna through bhakti. When I say easy, it is simple. It does not have the rigor that is required in either Gnana Yoga or Karma Yoga. So that's the essence of Gita. He says, all of you, without being qualified, without really struggling hard, you can just pray to me wherever you are, and you are in Bhakti Yoga. And Gnana Yoga. Gnana Yoga is for intelligent people. It is like, you have all the intelligence to go through various scriptures available and come to the self-realization of what Krishna is. So this is the path that Krishna has defined. Choice is yours to follow. He says, have faith in me. You may have followed any route. End of the day, there's only one message that I can give you. Have faith in me, obtain salvation. This is a world full of misery, and the only way you can obtain salvation, find a solution to all the problems that you face in life, is to have faith in me, and I will give you liberation. Just have love to me. And this is a very, very fundamental message. Love is universal, and find ultimate solution to worldly problems. And as you read, you get really fascinated. Wow, what a profound statement that Krishna has made. It looks so simple to read, but it takes time to understand and digest it. Now, we are students of Gita, and we are living beings living in this conditioned world. What am I seeking by trying to study Gita. It's a long list, but I thought these are the few things which, if we are able to find answers to, or at least realize that I can find answers to these questions in this reference book, and that's Song of God, Gita. It starts with the fundamental. Who am I? And it is such an interesting thing. I'm sure we don't have so much of time for me to get into the depth of it, but then it was fascinating. And all of us try to say that, I'm sure, Naveen, you will say, I am Naveen. I'll say, I am Shyam. My wife will say, she is Sneha. But then it's only one dimension of who we are. It is far, far beyond that. And Gita does not give you anything for sake of knowledge. He says, take this, read this, understand this, and live. Live in this world. So I'm not giving you a solution which is exotic, very difficult to apply. It is living. You can live in this world by reading my message. Try and move away from hate. Love is universal. Joy or harmony. We have to make a choice, because joy can be had by all sense gratification. I have a cup of, or let's say a bottle of beer, be a joyful. But is that what going to take you too far? That is something for an individual to reflect. So joy or harmony, the choice is in our hands. Bliss of devotion, existence of Atma in everyone. Now, this is something which is very difficult to pick up in any of the scriptures so easily. The knowledge doesn't come out so simple, in simple words. For a layman, it becomes very difficult to understand what Krishna is trying to say. If you read, let's say, Rig Veda or Atharvana Veda or Upanishads, not easy. But in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, he says, who you are. He says, you are the soul. You are the Atma. And after realizing who we are the soul, then it becomes very easy for us to unite with every other living being, because there's hardly anything to choose between the two. We are all eternal living beings who have come into this world for living our part, and we have to go back. Why are we suffering? Now, this is most of us in this world are facing some problem or the other. It could be health, it could be family relationships, it could be a career, it could be children, what have you. There is one thing which is a fact, which I will be referring to again and again. Misery is a fact of life. But the question after we read Bhagavad Gita is to find out, is it the purpose of life? We have to choose whether we want to be miserable or we want to be happy. It's in our hands. And Krishna says how you can do it. And he says how to find a solution for our suffering. And this is even more profound, because most of us are stuck at the rational level of consciousness and trying to ask irrational questions. And one of the biggest irrational questions man faces in life is why? Why? But that is not going to lead you anywhere in this world. If you want to move away from why and come to how, you are finding a solution for your suffering. How to live in this world? Why are we constantly in search of happiness? What makes us look for happiness? We make all our attempt in this world is to earn more money, to have better safety, to have better security, better protection for our family. And it's a changing goalpost. We achieve one, and there's already two more in the list to do. So, and until we get the next target that we have set for ourselves, our happiness is sacrificed. So he says, try and understand that happiness is a moving goalpost. Unless you come to a conclusion, less is more, you will never be happy, because you are always chasing the rainbow. And he says, happiness is an integral part of every living being, because the soul in you is a part and parcel of mind, which is Sat, Chit, Ananda. What is Sat? It is eternal. What is Chit? It is conscious. What is Ananda? It is bliss, beyond happiness. All should aspire to reach Paramatma. And this statement looks very, very complex. How can I reach Paramatma when I don't know where he is? Krishna says, I am in you. Every Atma has Paramatma sitting next to you. So don't go outside in this world to see where I am. I am in you. But is it easy? As I said, devotion is easy. It is simple, but it takes effort to realize what Krishna is trying to say by making the statement. Come to me, I am Paramatma. I am sitting next to you. Who is Atma? So these are the various teachings that we can come to understand by going through Gita. A slight, what you can say, a look into Gita has been a textbook, a philosophical treatise, which has influenced many rich, famous scientists, humanity, if I were to use the right word. I don't want to go through all of them. Let me start with Albert Einstein. He's my favorite. He says, when I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. And Albert Einstein, as we all know, is one of the greatest scientists of our times. Vivekananda, he says, spirituality cannot be attained until materialism is gone. Now, at this stage, maybe spirituality and materialism looks two difficult words or not very common to all of us. But then, as we go through Bhagavad Gita, we really start understanding spirituality lies within us. Mahatma Gandhi, and this applies to all of us. And that is how I started getting into Bhagavad Gita. And I did this when I was 48 years old. My only regret in life is, had I known, I always knew, but then there was never a circumstance which made me get into what Bhagavad Gita says. Gandhi says, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, we are very familiar with this situation, all of us. I turn to Bhagavad Gita and find the words to comfort me, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meaning from it every day. It goes back to my wife's great-grandfather who said, I read Bhagavad Gita 2,838 times. Let me not go through all of them. Is there anything which I have to... Okay. We will end with Sri Aurobindo. Bhagavad Gita is the true scripture of the human race, a living creation, rather than a book. Most of us feel, oh, I have the book and then it is not for me. It's very difficult to understand. Let me do it at some good time later in life, with a few messages for every age and a new meaning for every civilization. In fact, if we go through all these famous personalities and what their statements are, what is the motivation that we should take is that if we can start getting into Gita as early as you can, because none of us are going to live here forever. The only thing which is not in our control is death. So Krishna says, if you want to remember me at the time of death, all that you need to do is go through Gita. Because Gita tells you how to remember me at the time of death. So this is how various famous personalities were influenced by Gita. Let me pause again because it's been a strong monologue. Any other questions? Any other thoughts, sir?
No, very nice. And you do it quite nicely, quite eloquently.
And please feel free.
Just go ahead. Yes,
to voice your doubt or anything which you feel, oh, well, it looks easy, but is it really so?
Yeah, so there are no doubts, but obviously the areas of clarity in terms of the words which are used. And typically, so a question I have is, you said and indicated at the outset that we'll go through it a bit fast and all that. Otherwise, we could have spent more time as to who am I, what is the purpose. Remember the questions you had at the outset. If we were to give sufficient time, whether it's you or somebody else, how much more time should we give for this first session to, it can be indefinite, but at the same time, being practical. What is it? I mean, we are doing it 55 minutes an hour.
Yeah. You will be free by 9:45, 9:50, not more than that.
No, I'm not worried about that. Don't worry on that score. But then typically, if you want to give justice to what you're saying,
right,
for the listener, how much time do you require for a session like this?
In fact, if I have to cover the introduction to Gita at the normal pace that, we ask, interact, because there are many words which we use it for the first time, I think it takes us around 3 hours. So maybe 3 sessions. Because sitting through for 3 hours on Zoom call is not easy. And we can break it into...
No, I understand. And that's what I wanted to know. If you require 3 hours, it may not be in one shot.
Right.
It can be staggered over a period of time.
Yes.
But then you will feel that you've done justice to it.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know. So I didn't want to contract or to reduce the value to me by saying, oh, I have only 1 hour. This on real time definition we make. I have only so much time. We have infinite time if we want to. And if you don't want to, we can always see that I've got so many other things to do. Today happens to be an awkward situation where I have to attend something just to show my face.
Okay.
It's a public country. So that's why it happened. Anyway, let's carry on.
No.
I'm just getting a feel. Yeah.
Perfect. Let me move into the next slide. Secret of Gita. I don't want to spend more time because let me spend more time on the essence of Gita. So it suffices to say that, when you read this verse, chapter 2, verse 29, perfect. So he says, even the 40-minute time limit has been removed for us. So thank Krishna for the mercy. So he says, what comes to our mind? Sorry, sir?
That's very good. So somebody understood that it's for Gita and therefore that limitation has been removed. Krishna has done his wonder.
I'm also surprised because yesterday when I booked the meeting appointment, it said 40 minutes, but now it says we are remote. So thank Krishna for that. So when we read this verse, the verse is very clear. It says that some look on the soul as amazing because we touched upon the concept of soul. Not all of us are familiar with it. Some describe him as amazing and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So it is simple, it is easy, but not, one is, it's easy to hear. You think you have understood, but then we really have to make an attempt to understand what does Krishna say? You are not the body, you are the soul. Let's move further. This is the slide which we will spend a few minutes. And I think after this is only one more slide, nothing more left. Essence of Gita. So I have summarized this as 3 C's because we're all management students and we want to remember it in a very easy way. What is the 3 C? Concept, content, conclusion. What's the concept? Let's look at the context. It is as dramatic as any Hollywood or a Bollywood movie. We are listening to Bhagavad Gita spoken by Krishna on a battlefield. Can you ever find another scripture which has such a dramatic background to it? No way. Bhagavad Gita is unique. And what it starts with, in chapter 1, verse 40, Arjuna says, I am overwhelmed by grief and I decide not to fight. Why he is overwhelmed by grief? Because he says, who is Bhishma? He is my grandfather. Who is Drona? He is my teacher. How do you expect me to fight against them? No way. I can't fight. I'll give it up. And we try and look at ourselves and understand in our life, almost at a regular, repeated frequency, we are facing problems. We are facing miseries. And we also feel, oh, let's put it down. I don't think I am capable of managing this. But then, is it an option? It is not an option. So what did Arjuna do? Arjuna said, Krishna, I surrender to you. Please help me. What do I do? How do I overcome this grief and moral dilemma that I face? So this is the dramatic context. And to add even more color to it, There were 7 generations of relatives who were lined up in the war to fight against each other. It was a patricidal war. Can you imagine the grief that every person on the field was feeling? Whom am I fighting? They were all people with whom I lived together for ages. But today, because of what Duryodhana said, I will not give you an inch of land, they had come into this war situation. And from in this dramatic, hate-filled, virtuous versus vicious battle, Krishna comes out with this message of Gita. So that is the dramatic context. And what is the message that stands out? There are many, millions of them interpretations. But what you can see is love is eternal. And why I say love is eternal is it is not unidirectional. It is not that you have to love God. God also loves you. How is the question. Krishna agreed to become the chariot driver of Arjuna. He's the Lord, he's the world's supreme person, and he accepted to do a menial job of a chauffeur. That shows love is universal. And if Arjuna trusted him, and to get a slight context, in fact, both Duryodhana and Arjuna rushed to Krishna when the battle was declared. In fact, Duryodhana reaches Krishna first and goes and stands near his head. Arjuna is a few minutes late and he goes and stands near his leg. As Krishna was sleeping. Krishna wakes up and he sees Arjuna. And then he turns around, he sees Duryodhana. And both of them almost simultaneously say, can you give us your support for this war? So Krishna says, okay, fine. Let me give you what is available as support. I am not going to participate in this war. Clear? But I can give myself to anyone who chooses. And both of you are here, you make a choice. So what is the next prize I have to give? I have my Akshar Rohini Sainya, that is the army. I'll give it to you. So you have the choice between army, the world's best prepared army to fight, or me, who is a non-combatant. I am not going to take any weapon in this war. You decide. And Arjuna, who is in love with Krishna, says, you have given me the first choice because you saw me first, and I am angered to the Duryodhana. I will choose you. Profound message here. Arjuna did not go behind the most well-trained army in the world. And he says, I am choosing God over everything. Duryodhana represented the other end of the spectrum. He said, he was very happy. He said, Krishna, you be with Arjuna. I will be very happy with this army. I know how to use this army to fight. So this is how love is. It is not just about we loving God. It is about God loving us equally, all the time. Second, concept that comes out. What is dharma? How to uphold dharma? And what was the dilemma that Arjuna faced? The dilemma was, I am a Kshatriya. Incidentally, he has the same surname as you, sir. He was a Kshatriya. And the Kshatriya dharma says, protect the weak and fight for the right. And at the same time, why was Arjuna confused? Because he wanted to uphold his family dharma. He belonged to Kuru dynasty. So Kula dharma, that was also part of his responsibility. So, but then, once we go through the Bhagavad Gita, the understanding that we come to is that, what is dharma? We should understand that. In brief, in summation, dharma is something which is innate to us. How to understand this? It is like saying water is fluid. Can you take away water or fluidity from water? No way. Second example, look at fire. Can you take away heat from fire? No way. Heat is innate to fire. So this is how we should try to get into understanding of dharma and simplify our situations which are difficult to understand and comprehend. Further, it is not just understanding the innate nature. Krishna also says dharma is something where you have to harmonize yourself with the surroundings. What does this mean? A very simple example. I'm not well. I go to a hospital and I'm supposed to follow the hospital dharma. And what is the hospital dharma? Take medicines, get yourself regularly checked, visit the doctor as per advice, and follow all the norms. And only then I can get cured. But what I do, I say, oh, well, hospital dharma is not for me. I'm so and so. What I'll do, I'll ask for a 7-course meal. I'll have a dessert after my lunch. Now, this is not dharma because you are not harmonizing your activities, your duty with your surroundings. This is another great understanding of dharma that we realize after we go through Gita. Let's come to content. I have used an acronym because we are all management students. We can remember this content as idea. Very easy to remember. And what does this break into? Idea. I stands for identity, D stands for divinity, E stands for eternality, and A stands for activity. Profound concepts. Let me try and do justice to spend 2 minutes on each of them. What is our identity? I said in the earlier side, Bhagavad Gita helps us to understand who am I. Let's go beyond our functional identity. I belong to so-and-so family. I'm so-and-so son. Yes, that is my functional identity. But what is my fundamental identity? That is something for us to reflect, read, and understand. We are soul. Never changes. Now, can I make this easier to understand by an example? Let's say we have a death in the family. And a small kid comes to his father and says, Papa, Nana ji ko kya ho gaya? Nana ji to abhi baat nahi kar rahe. So the father says, Nana chal base. The kid says, Nana chal base. Nana to yahi hai. वो सो रहे, बात नहीं कर रहे, आप ऐसे कैसे बात कर सकते हो? That is understanding of the soul. Yes, the body is here. The body was there. The body is here. The body is in front of us. But then there is something profound which has happened. The soul has left the body. And what is the soul? It is our consciousness. You can see the soul every minute of our living life. Blood flows as our consciousness in the body. Cut yourself anywhere, you come out with pain. That is consciousness. So it is something which we must discuss in depth to really understand. What is that? First is to understand, and next is how can I apply that? Why should I lose my cool if someone insults me? End of the day, we are the same at a spiritual level. So this is our identity. And it's even easier to understand. We are the same, but our body keeps changing. So we are all familiar with the change. We were born, we were kids, we became youth, we became middle-aged, and we are now old age. So there is something in us which is changing, that is the body. There is something in us which is not changing, that is the soul. That is the Atma. This is about identity. Let's look at divinity. Here, if I were to make this more simpler to understand, is let us look at what is the definition of God. Let us not look at what is the depiction of God. And what is the definition of God? It is given in Gita. It very clearly says, I am the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam, source of everything. What does it mean? There is no ambiguity, there is no question mark, there is no doubt. Oh, how could this be? Anything and everything that exists in this world comes from me. That is the message of divinity. After this, I don't think we should be getting into this questions, irrational questions. Oh, where is God? Show me God. It is in front of you to see Him, feel Him, experience Him. This is divinity. Eternality, which flows through from divinity and identity. Eternality. Now, Krishna says in 8.15, I don't want to get into the verse, Dukkhalayam Ashasvatam. What it says is that this world is temporary, Ashasvatam, and Dukkhalayam, misery. So he is stating the question of this world. And understanding eternality changes our vision of life. And so the fact of life is misery is part and parcel of any living being in this world. But what we are trying to understand and gain benefit of Krishna's discourse is we are trying to understand what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is not to suffer. The purpose of life is to soar above our difficulties, soar above our miseries, and reach the Lord. And he says, Tam Titiksha Swabharata, just tolerate. and transcend with faith in me. This is eternality. And he also says in 15.7, which gives us a lot of assurance. He says that you are part and parcel of me eternally. It's not that you are praying to me in this lifetime because you have come into this material world. Eternally, you are part and parcel of me. And I'm here to guide you, to shelter you, to protect you. Just pray to me. Just have faith in me. This is eternality. This is even more interesting. We talked about karma. Now, karma has fascinating facets to it. You can do good karma, you can do bad karma, you can do pious karma. Choice is yours. Krishna doesn't hold us by our hands and says that you need to do only pious acts. Choice is yours. And the biggest understanding from activity that we can get is surrender. He says, surrender to me. And whenever we talk about surrender, the first thing that comes to our mind is helpless surrender that we saw Draupadi in that situation. She lifted both her hands and says, "Oh Krishna, save me." That is helpless surrender. But is that the only dimension of surrender? Not at all. If you see what Arjuna achieved at the end of listening to Gita from Krishna, he says, I am determined, I am ready to serve. So surrender also means readiness to serve, connect with Krishna. That is the last part of content, activity. How to remember it? Idea, identity, divinity, eternality, activity. Conclusion. Let's read this. Now, what does Arjuna say? Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava. I am free from all doubts and I shall act according to your instructions. And that is the biggest learning and the message that all of us can imbibe in our lives. Be free from doubt, whatever is the situation, have firm faith in God. And when you do this, what did Arjuna achieve? From a state of confusion, he came to a state of confidence. He had a lot of self-doubts. He had dilemma. He became determined. He was firm. He said, I will follow your instructions. I pick up my bow and arrow and I will fight the war, and I will fight the war to the best of my capability. So he is willing to use his ability to win the war. That was a transformation that happened in Arjuna. And the last and the most famous verse of Gita, Sarva dharma parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshasya yami ma suchaha. Krishna says, surrender unto me and I will save you from all sinful reactions. Please have no doubt. So this is the profound conclusion of Gita. I said we have just one slide. So this is about benefits of studying Bhagavad Gita. And any student of Bhagavad Gita refers to the Mahatmya, which was composed by Adi Shankaracharya. And I don't want to go through all of them. I'll just go through one of them. That is the last one, Gita Mahatmya 7. It says, Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam, Eko Deva Devaki Putra Eva, Eko Mantras Tasya Namami Yani, Karmapi Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. In this present day, people are very much eager to have one scripture, one God, one religion, and one occupation. Therefore, Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam. Let there be one scripture only, one common scripture for the whole world, and that is Bhagavad Gita. Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva. Let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna. Eko Mantras Tasya Namami. And one hymn, one mantra, one prayer, the chanting of his name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Karmapi Ekam Tasya Devasya Seva. And let there be one work only, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. With that, I have come to the end of this session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Shyamsundar. That was really good. So there's one question. So therefore, when you say Hare Krishna, Hare Rama,
Yeah.
Rama is seen to be an avatar of Krishna. Is that's
Yes.
why you say so? Because
Yes.
two different personalities in our minds.
Yes. It's like, it's a very interesting question. So we can understand this as, they're all manifestations of Krishna, avatars of Krishna. And how we can understand that is that as a person, we play so many roles in our life. I am a son, then I am a student, I'm a parent, I'm an officer in where I'm working, and then I'm someone's grandson, I'm someone's husband, and all of them are me. So that's how we understand our avatars of Krishna, manifestations of Krishna.
Okay, good. So I just have another question.
Yeah.
I certainly found it very interesting and useful, sufficiently compact, and at the same time, how many such sessions are required to go through to have a full understanding of Gita? Of course, not a full understanding, but whatever you think is practical.
Okay.
Typically.
Let me give you a perspective. This is like we are in a coal mine. So we decide I need 10 tons of coal today or 50 tons of coal today, and my effort is towards that. So I gave you a timeline earlier where I said, sir, I can walk you through the introduction to Gita, where you have understood what is Gita trying to communicate to me. It is not going to be a black book, a black box. So it is a philosophical guide. But then with this introduction of 3 hours, you are comfortable, confident to read and understand, make an attempt to read Bhagavad Gita. Now, coming to the further question, if we have to go through Gita at a good pace, now we have to decide our pace. Can I do 10 slokas a day? Then you need 70 days, because 10 into 70, 700. Can I do 15 slokas a day? The timeline comes down. You will not believe I did 2.5 years course because I could spend only 2.5 hours every week. So we are all in this karma, and karma is also a yoga as per Krishna. So we decide, given my schedule, how much I can spend and what is my pace. I hope I have
So
answered
I
your
understand
question.
now your response. No, I've understood because it depends upon what is the overall length of time and what is the individual slots. So you did 2.5 hours per week for 2.5 years.
Yes.
So that's about 2,500 to 3,000 hours you spend going through it. Now, suppose how would you like to? You said you'll get me somebody.
Right.
You couldn't get, but you did it for me, and thank you very much for that. I was just wondering, 1-to-1 is good, but you're spending time only in one individual. And suppose there are 3 or 4 or 5 such like-minded people,
right,
who want to also learn. The good thing is with the online Zoom.
Yes, sir. It is definitely possible. And now there are 2 things here. What is happening is that the temple preachers now, they are all tied up. And Saturday and Sunday they run face-to-face classes, and they also do Zoom classes on the weekdays. And the size of the class is generally between 15 to 20 students. So now this is what is going on. But if you say 3 to 4 people or 4 to 5 people, and I don't mind having an online class, so then we'll have to start working out. And what I have found is that it is very difficult to find a dedicated teacher. But in life, it is all mercy. It is like, we endeavor, we think it is not going to happen, but one day a teacher walks into our door and says, I will do it for you. So I'm waiting for that day to happen. But you have
so
a resource
I
in
was
me.
Thinking of some of my. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you very much for that. So I didn't want to ask you because you offered it. So these are senior colleagues, other trustees. So
Right.
ex-chairman, Dr. Mr. Kathuria used to be the Crompton and Greaves chairman. Then I have, Uday Khanna. He's a co-trustee. He's also very spiritually inclined. So is this gentleman, Kevan Loria, spiritually inclined. And Hari Mundra is also there as a chairman currently. I do not know, maybe he's already done this thing before. So these are 3-4 people I could ask and make your time even more worth. But only thing is, once we start, then we have to go through. So, and I think to plan for more than a year might be very difficult. But we could work on a basis that every Sunday morning or whatever, because you are a working person and you can't do that on other days. We could devote kind of 1 hour, 15 minutes or 1.5, depending what Zoom allows. Zoom has allowed you, fortunately, a bit more than 40 minutes.
Correct.
It may not be so every time. So if you are okay with this, I can fly the kite with them and ask them. And my objective is to make the spirituality spread a bit more through this methodology which you have initiated. And these are the people who are favorably spiritually inclined, and I know that, rather than fashionable के लिए मैं आ गया, मैं 2-4 किया, मैं चला गया, वो सब नहीं है.
Right.
So if you think something there, we can talk a little bit later, and then we can see how we can go about it. Without promising anything, I'll check with them whether they might be interested. Okay, and this will be an input to the Indian Cancer Society, and I could actually ask some other good people as well, and if it's good, they can also join. So this may be a support to us, to the Cancer Society. I must get off now. Hello?
Certainly, sir. I am with you, and I said I am happy to be. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you saying something complete?
I said I am comfortable speaking one-on-one with you, because in Gita it says, if in your lifetime you are able to speak about this to one person, you have achieved your expectation from me. So for me, size of the group is, if you have 4 people in the room, fantastic. If you have only 1 people in the room, fantastic, because you are keen and you are committed to hear. And my job is to tell the same message, whether it is 1 or 4. So I have no issues. And once in a week, doable. So I leave it to you, sir. It is your convenience. And I must thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day then.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.